Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. Here's your host, Chris Lee. Commodore fans, on your feet. It's time to anchor down.
Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast presented by Dr. Jody Jones, DDS. We're part of the 440 Sports Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Chip Fridrich, will talk Vanderbilt baseball. Chip appears on the guest line that's presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in an accident, give Taylor or Russell a call. That number 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Now on to our interview with Chip.
Chip Fridrich joins us, back from the dead, or at least dead to the podcast last week as I got busy and forgot to call him. Chip, how you doing, my man?
Everything's going all right, Chris. Hope things are great with you. Vanderbilt baseball is cruising along since we last talked, and 17 wins in a row is not bad. Nothing to not too shabby. I do think that you see it in the post-game press conferences. You see the attitude that Corbin has in his press conferences, that there's still a measured part of the success that you want to have, because you really don't know. I think he knows his team's pretty good. I think he knows he's got some a very good pitching staff, very young throwers on there that are probably way light years ahead of where they thought they were. They were great prospects, so he's got to be pleased at that. But when you look back on the Hawaiis and the Wagners, and you open up with Missouri, a team that is much better than they've been on paper, and I think talent-wise, I don't know how many games they're going to win this year, but I think they're better. You still got to wonder, heading into Columbia this weekend, is this going to be the first true test, even though the Gamecocks got swept last weekend? When is Vanderbilt going to be hit in the mouth like they were against Oklahoma State, and are they going to be able to respond? But you'd rather have these victories total up. These guys are getting experience. They're getting to play in the SEC games. They're building up some confidence. But you just wonder, when is that going to happen? When's that moment going to happen, like the Oklahoma State, when they play a peer team that's as talented as they are, that has the arms that Oklahoma State did, and the players in the field, and how's this team going to react? The way they've been playing lately, you would think that's got to be a positive thing. But right now, you look at the stats, and 18-2 at this point is not bad. They're breaking, every time they win a game, they're breaking records for most consecutive wins in this era. So a lot of good things to talk about.
Yeah, I think for the record, 20 is the most. The 07 team won that, but still we're getting to that point where it's crazy. And I haven't asked him off the record how he feels about his team, but you can just tell. I've been around him enough. And I thought that Oklahoma State series was telling, because he didn't sense any frustration in his post-game thing. There have been a couple of times that I came to a post-game after they didn't play their best and thinking he might be a little bit on edge, and he just wasn't. And I asked him a question yesterday being Tuesday. This won't air till Thursday, so it'll be 2 days ago as most people hear this, about his team, because lately they've had these runs in games where there's maybe a defensive gap early, or just a bunch of balls find holes in a row, and a couple of runs go against them, and they're hitting rockets and they're getting caught. Just been that way for 3 or 4 games in a row, it seems like, where they've had the starts kind of like that. And I asked him about that. I said, what's the key to just getting over that? He said it's maturity. And I should have followed up with a question about leadership. I didn't really want to keep them too long on Tuesday because they were headed back to campus and all that, and I was trying to be sensitive to that. But I thought that was an interesting way to answer the question. And you can just tell his demeanor post-game that he thinks he's got a really good team, and I think he's right. We'll see when the games get tougher, but I've seen a lot of college baseball, and you get a sense for when a team is in that elite territory. And it just seems like that's what they've got to me.
Yeah, and I remember the two of us, when we talked on that Sunday, the Oklahoma State series, I know I texted you And after that didn't, turn out the way they wanted to when they lost 7-5 on Game 3, in that press conference, which you and I we know how it can be. It could be any coach, but especially with over through the years, Tim's a guy who doesn't like to lose, and that's a great trait. I mean, he takes it. He takes it personally sometimes that he could have done something, in his training that was better or whatever. And I remember your text back was, it wasn't bad at all. And so I kind of knew from that in talking to you, someone who more than anybody who follows Vanderbilt baseball can read him. And that was a very telling sign to me that, well, maybe you're onto something, that he A, knew how good Oklahoma State was, but B, also knew that his team's very talented and has gonna have a chance when it's all said and done to be back where they've been several times in the last 5-6 years. So I mean, the maturity part of it and the leadership, there are roles that guys take through the training they do in the fall and then the early part of the year, and they kind of let those sift out, and the leaders come to the forefront. I think Tate Colwick is a guy who has taken that role, it appears, just from body language and how the guys respond to him. But this team, like the other teams that have been successful, looks like they're having a lot of fun, looks like there's a lot of camaraderie, looks like there's a lot of togetherness. You see how they act in the dugout together, out on the field, and in between innings, and when a guy gets a big hit. And those are things that, as a coach, you don't want to really react and make those things happen. You want to make them happen on their own. You don't want to have false leadership and forced leadership that you say, call a guy and go, hey, you need to be the guy to carry this team. You need to be the leader, because the players can see right through that. So when you got a guy also, it doesn't hurt, like a Carter Holton, who just, I mean, the kid's super talented, but I don't think anybody would have thought that he would have just jumped into this role that he's done on Saturday like he has, and leading the conference at the top of the conference in strikeouts, and how his command is, and how his rhythm is in the game, how games seem to go super fast when he's pitching. All these things are just beyond my thoughts of what I thought he was going to be. I heard a lot of great things about him, but when you have the mixture of guys like Colwick and your older guys who are the seniors that Corbin seems to really take a part, as far as when he identifies those guys who've hung around for that fourth year, in some instances maybe a fifth year if a guy was injured. Those guys kind of evolve and become those leaders, and then you got the young guys who are mature beyond their years. If you got that mixture, you can do a whole lot in the month of June.
Yeah, this has just got that feel kind of the 2019 team in that way, where like they've got their guys like the Blades and the Ethan Pauls that you know are probably team leaders, and I think that Colwick obviously is one. I think that Keegan is one, maybe Carter Young too. Bradfield's a guy he's loved from the moment he's stepped on campus. Now they're getting to the point where these kids have played a lot of baseball, which wasn't the case last year. They know the drill, they know his expectations, and they just seem to have kind of settled in this groove, for lack of a better word. Now, that's going to get upset at some point this season, because it always does. Even the 19 team, they lost a series at Georgia, and maybe there was one other one in there, I don't remember for sure. That's going to happen. There's going to be a point where they lose 3 or 4, something like that, and gloom and doom will come, because kind of that's what Vanderbilt fans do. The bar is so high for these guys, but I just feel like you get to feel like you know what you're watching.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I didn't add also to that mix. I got a kid like Davis Diaz who just slides into the lineup like he's done along on the pitching side with Holton, and you've got Vaz, who just kind of comes out of nowhere at the end of last year and slides into that left field spot, and he's an older guy, and he's played JUCO, and he's a kid who's played a lot of baseball games, maybe not a lot of SEC baseball games, but he's played a lot of baseball games literally at this level against great talent. So all those things, a more mature Bradfield as far as, he was so raw last year, and a very good raw. So yeah, there's some things and I tend to Kyle Peterson in his broadcast, who I've talked about through this podcast the last couple of years, I really respect him a lot. I think he has a unique perspective of college baseball. He loves it. When he speaks, I think a lot of the people, especially in the SEC, he pays a whole lot of attention to it. And he's just taking the words out of my mouth. And I tend to, when he was here several weeks ago with a Michigan game, he talked about how, there's first base and catcher. Is Vanderbilt going to be able to catch it as much as well as they have in years past? And I even remember I said the same thing before that broadcast. I'm not saying I beat him to the punch, but I think it's pretty obvious. And then the position at first base, is there going to be a winner of that in the next couple weeks that is a consistent, that's going to go out there day in and day out? Other than that, it seems like they've settled into the lineup. And the pitching, I think he mentioned in the broadcast in the Michigan game, that number 3 spot is when is someone going to step up and take that on a permanent basis? But those 3 things, I would add a 4th to it, and you might have some comments about this. It kind of revolves back to the catching part. But and I wrote this down, is Jack Bolger going to be able to hit well enough to be in the lineup when he's not catching? Because right now he has been, and you saw what he did yesterday. The kid has a tremendous amount of talent, and it's just been frustrated. I think Tim talked about it. He's had a frustrating year at bat, and things haven't been falling for him. He gets the home run yesterday at I almost said Greer. If you're from Nashville, you just call it Greer. I mean, it's First Tennessee Park, but
I did that yesterday too.
Just but is Bolger going to be able to hit in the DH role when he's not alternating at catcher? And that's important because he's got the talent, and he's got the punch and the pop in his bat. But I would say, and I ask your comment about that. Maybe you think differently, but I think that's a question mark. How long are they going to be able to go with him in there if yesterday was an aberration and he or not? But I think that's something that is to be discussed, and whether he can continue to do that.
Yeah, I've been wondering about that myself. I wondered if he was maybe hurt because he's not hitting the ball with much authority. My understanding is he's just pressing, and maybe yesterday is what got him over.
Yeah, and we hope so, because he's got the skills, and I think he and Keegan catch a little differently, their approach, and you don't know if they're going to settle into a rotation as far as how they do it, and they're catching certain pitchers. I know that happened a couple years ago. Who was it that caught? I forgot what the rotation it was, but it was somebody who always caught a pitcher, a top-line pitcher, and my mind's running a blank. But
was this the DeLay Ellison era, or are we talking about something since?
I'm not sure. It was just, I know it was within the last 5 years. And a lot of teams will go with the same guy, all 3 games, but that's a lot of wear and tear in this league when you're going 27 innings. And over a weekend, a 3-game series. So Bolger's going to have to. They've shown enough faith in him that he's going to be, at least one of the 3 games back there.
Yeah,
but, we talked about a few weeks ago. Our team's going to be able to run on them, the speedy teams in the conference, or are they going to be able to throw guys out? And we haven't really seen enough sample there just with Missouri coming in. I think we'll get a little better indication this weekend.
Well, Missouri runs a ton. The problem was they just didn't let enough guys on base. I mean, the pitching was terrific all weekend. And that's, as you said, that's a better Missouri team. I don't know. I mean, the defense has been the big thing where they just keep having these little hiccups, but they're all fixable. And even the throwing, there have been times where I felt like you see respectable results there. So I don't think it's when you're a team where everything is there and you got so much talent and there's not a lot of glaring weaknesses, that's where you shine the spotlight. And I think that's where everybody's looking. And I'm not saying maybe it'll end up being a huge concern, but I'm probably less concerned about it than I was coming in. I mean, I'll pull up the stat sheet, but it's not like teams have just run wild on them a month into the season.
Yeah, 17 and 23.
That's
on the base path.
Totally fine.
Yeah. So again, once the teams, you start playing the Tennessees and you get down further the schedule, and that will we'll see how that goes. But I think that overall, this league, 1 weekend, there's not, you got a South Carolina team we're playing this weekend who at 10-10, you sit there and you say, well, look at the schedule and who they played. And I mean, South Carolina traditionally, the last couple of years, they haven't been the same South Carolina that had the run in Omaha, but they do have a 2 out of 3 beating Texas at the time, the number 1 team in the country. So that they have the confidence and they have the wherewithal to say, we can do that. We can play with the top level teams, but they run into a UT team in Knoxville over the weekend, and they lose 8-3, 5-2, and 10-0 on Sunday. So they're going to come in, and then they lose to Citadel last night.
Yeah,
which that doesn't sit well. So this team, it could go either way for them, and I'm saying that I'm not saying that their season's lost, and there's all things are lost for the Gamecocks because they've lost 4 in a row, but because they can turn it around real quick. But having that stuff can add to the pressure that's going on in Columbia of not kind of doing the things that fan base is used to, and it's going to be a real test for them, especially with a Vanderbilt team that's won that many games in a row.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It's a situation where the pressure starts to mount. I don't know that the fan base is thrilled with Mark Kingston. I'm not on top of that enough to know, but I think when the bar was set where it was a decade ago, nobody's lived up to that since. And I just wonder, is Vanderbilt going to be the looser team coming into that series? Or is the pressure of expectations going to start to get to Vanderbilt at some point? It's going to be really interesting to see just the mental game when those two teams match up.
Yeah, and you look and see how this league, I mean, and I don't know how they do it, if it's a draw out of the hat as far as the rotation of who you play first. But, I mean, if you draw a Tennessee or an Ole Miss, you got to go to Oxford the first weekend of the season. Those things can be daunting task. Number one, you can look at it one way, you get it out of the way, or you look at it as this is going to be a test for our club to go down there and play in that environment. I mean, I think we'll find out a whole lot about UT this weekend, and they're going to Oxford. It's going to be pretty weather. They're back from spring break, meaning Ole Miss is. There won't be a seat in the house, and that'll be a true test. So, you open up once again. We talked about at the top of the podcast. You get the benefit of opening up with the Missouri, who tested you on Sunday. You were not tested the first 2 games, and I was almost glad to see the Sunday game being closer, where this team had to take a punch and they punched back and responded. But this league is unforgiving, and you start looking down the rest of the games and who you follow up with. There's really no breaks, and anybody can beat anybody. And I think Tim said that in the press conference. I mean, this Missouri team will scare some people, and they've got the recruiting is in this class that he had this past year was much, much better than it's been in the past. So it's a lot to be seen, and this it's still. I mean, think about Mississippi State. I mean, that team has been an enigma since day one when they lost early in some non-conference games, and they're falling out of the top 25. And as much as they're happy with what they've done winning the national title, and those folks are rabid, and they'll forget that real fast if they don't turn it around down there. So a lot going on in the SEC, but it's still early.
This season of the Vandy Sports Podcast has been made possible by my friend Dr. Jody Jones, DDS. When it comes to general or cosmetic dentistry services, Jody is the best in Nashville. Just check out his client list. It testifies to that. He sees movie stars, music stars, athletes, coaches, you name it. Jody is the dentist of choice for stars in Nashville, but he sees regular folks like you and I as well. What people love about Jody's office is the ambiance. It's relaxing. It's friendly. Someone described it to me as a tooth spa. Whether your needs are general or cosmetic, go see Jody today. Call him 615-270-2322. See him at 55 Music Square East, not far from downtown or the Vanderbilt campus. Jody is a former Vanderbilt football player and a huge Commodore booster, so go and talk Vandy sports with him while you're there. Go see Jody Jones today. Thank him for his support of this podcast, because without it, this season would not be possible. I think the top 4 teams in this league in some order are Vandy, Tennessee, Arkansas, and Ole Miss. And I'm looking at it. I don't think that Vanderbilt plays a top half of this league team on the road until Arkansas, which will be the final road series of the year. Auburn could get in that conversation. I don't know what to think of Auburn right now, but the schedule is really lined up favorably for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and especially like you said, who the home away definitely favors the Commodores. But looking down there, I mean, no team. Well, 3 teams got swept: Missouri, Kentucky, and South Carolina. And you've got Vanderbilt, Tennessee swept, Arkansas swept, so 3 teams, of course, swept, and 3 got swept. So there'll be some movement here, and LSU still lurking back there at 15-5 and 1-2 of the conference. So they're and you still Texas A&M took care of them, took 2 out of 3. So this is you look at the D1 baseball rankings, and the top 5 are SEC or soon to be SEC, all of them if you include Texas, Ole Miss, Texas, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Tennessee in that order. You got Florida at 8th, and then you get it. There's a little gap there between another SEC team, Georgia, at 17, LSU 21. So still a lot of still in that top 5 if you include Texas for future purposes. Pretty heavy dominance of the SEC.
Well, I want to see these teams play real teams, which is coming when they play each other. In fact, I didn't think the first weekend slate was great. I thought there was some mismatches in there. I'll give you an example. I think that Kentucky, Arkansas could have been a lot more interesting if that was in Kentucky, but it wasn't.
Right.
So I just feel like we're 5 weeks into this and we don't know. Well, we know more than we did, but you kind of have to withhold judgment till the games are more competitive. But one thing that looks to be the case right now, I think that it seems to me like Vanderbilt and Tennessee are a lap ahead of the rest of the teams in this league when it comes to pitching. Arkansas might be the team out there, surprisingly, having lost Peyton Pallette, that might be in competition for that 3rd spot. Georgia's has not been what I thought it would be. Florida has got a case, but Florida's got some really good arms at the top, but the depth is an issue. But statistically speaking, Vanderbilt and Tennessee are just way out in front in terms of the pitching so far.
Right, and what was surprising to me about the Georgia, Georgia winning 2 out of 3 like they did, but Georgia gave up a lot of runs in their wins.
Gave up 20 in the loss too.
Right, in the loss, but some of those games were inflated, so you wonder what's going on there on the pitching side. A lot of offense, and on UT side, UT's just super confident. I mean, they sort of just picked right up where they left off. The confidence, the swagger. They got the small park, the angles out there in the outfield where the ball just seems to launch out of there, and they're playing to that advantage. And so there's a lot of confidence going on in there. So I agree with your assessment of the top 4. I couldn't change any of that order. And like you said, no particular order. That'll all figure out themselves. And there might be a surprise team come in and break into that pack.
Who do you think gets the ball on Sunday?
I could see them going back to what they did last weekend. I really do. I think that was something that I've tossed around the idea of Futrell, getting a chance. But you and I talked about that off air. Tim is a creature of habit. He likes building the confidence of the young guys in midweek, and Devin has established himself in that role. Started again yesterday. He's got 3 wins under his belt. I think they like him in that role. So, you and I talked. I even mentioned that to him, and I've got former players who I talked to that were like, "Well, is there a chance we could have 2 out of 3 starters being freshmen in the rotation?" And I kind of just said, no, I don't think that's going to be the case right now. I think he likes Holton in the Saturday spot. But if you look back on, Hunter Owen got the start on Sunday, right? That's who got the this past weekend.
And he, if you didn't see it, he performed better than the box score showed.
Yeah, and I watched that. I was just thinking back, trying to scramble my brain, but yeah, and that's his. It was good to get him in that role on Sunday, I thought, because you never can have too many starting pitchers or pitchers with that experience. But you don't know what's going on with Maldonado with the oblique. That's something that you got to be careful with, and you can't rush. So they've got some options. I think some guys are feeling, Berkwich looks like he's a 1 inning max, 2 inning guy, get a left-handed hitter out here and there, and he's doing it really well. Schultz has kind of fallen into that role where he could be a multiple game guy. He's not an overpowering, closer. He throws the ball hard. I don't know if his stuff is as good as what Maldonado was last year. And then to me, though, you just forget about Christian Little somewhat, that here's a guy, the way he threw last year in the SEC tournament, that everybody harkens back to and their memory of what he could be. And they're kind of giving him here and there an inning or two. And he's the guy that I think would be called on later on in the year to take over a role like that. And you just forget, here's this super talented guy who's just 18 years old as a sophomore. And so the multitude of arms as you go down the list, it's just incredible. There's some really talented arms and guys who can get the shot. But do I think Hunter Owen is the Sunday starter in mid-April? I don't know. I really can't say that. I kind of say no. But that's just my guess. I think Hunter can be used, and you look at what he's done on 27 strikeouts in 17 innings. That's outstanding. But I don't know if it's if you're using staff, if you're going staff philosophy, and they had everything at their disposal, Chris, Sunday. They could use whoever they wanted to, and it was almost like you knew they were probably going to go staff on Sunday. So there's a multitude of options, but. If you ask me, I don't think Hunter would be the starter in late April. If he's the third starter, wouldn't surprise me. And if he's doing well, you could do that 3 or 4 innings on Sunday. But something tells me it's 50-50 on that.
Do you want to hear something crazy? I'm going to see if you can get this. Pitchers who've got over 5 innings on this staff this year, who's got the highest strikeout rate? Strikeout rate being the percentage of hitters that you have faced that you have struck out.
Not Holton. Well, is it Holton?
No, he's second.
Is it Hunter Owen?
No.
Let's see here. Who is it?
Thomas Schultz.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. His numbers are impressive. 15 strikeouts and 9 2/3.
Yeah. So, I keep thinking he's not the guy. But he may be the guy.
Well, Tim is you can tell in watching Tim, following him, knowing him, that he's not quick to give out praise. He does it and just enough to keep guys. He knows how to push the buttons of certain guys and who needs the praise and who doesn't. Who doesn't really. It doesn't matter one way or another. But I think he's been very intentional in his praise on Thomas Schultz. I think he mentioned that the last time he was out, that how proud he was of him, that he's come a long way, that he's a fighter. And I don't know if you picked up on that or not, but I think he's been very intentional to him as far as how that kid has progressed.
Do you want to take a little detour here for a second?
Let's go.
I wish to God they could have played the whole 2020 season. Because the pitching on that team was ludicrous. Schultz was throwing really well. Doolin was throwing okay. Leboke was phenomenal. You had Hickman. You had Rocker. You had Leiter. You had Jake Eater.
Yeah.
You had Tyler Brown. And I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody like McIlvain.
It was
I
almost
think
too much pitching. You don't know
Well-
how they would have gotten the innings. I know you can't have too much.
but look at what they ran into last year where they didn't have enough arms. I think if the 2020 season plays out, they end up winning another one.
I think
I
so
really
too.
do.
Yeah, and that's a shame. And it all, like everything else with what happened with COVID and everything, it's almost like you just forget about that. It's like I couldn't tell you anything that happened. I can tell you about the 2019 season, and I can tell you about last season, but it's almost like that season didn't even get started to me. I mean, it just
Chip,
melds. It doesn't
If that didn't end up being the best pitching staff in the history of college baseball, I would like to know what would have been.
Yeah, I mean, it was a remarkable set of arms and stuff we'll never know. I mean, it's but yeah, that's an interesting thought, and it just all came crashing down. It's a shame, but we move on. And but yeah, that's just that whole the way it transpired and what those guys went through, and it was glad we're past it, hopefully for good.
Well, and this one I think has got a chance to be pretty special in its own right. I don't know how much people are really watching Devin Futrell because he's pitching on weekdays. That kid's special, man. The velo, I know the velo doesn't make your eyes fall out, but he just got command of so many pitches. He can throw whatever at any point in the count, it seems like. That's just so tough to hit. And to see that out of a freshman, I mean, this kid's rare.
Yeah, and the way he throws his changeup is the thing that gets me. How effectively, how often he can throw it with confidence. And once again, I'm going to say it, and if you're not a baseball guy who studies it all the time, his pace, the way that he and Carter Holton
This is a quick working staff. Like you go to games this year, they don't drag. No, you're not sitting there going, when's this thing going to be over? I love the way that they pace. I just think it's so much easier to watch, and college baseball would just be so much better off if everything flowed the way the games do when they pitch. Now, look, some of that is when they're not letting runners on base, and not everybody's going to be able to do it like they do it, but I'm like, sometimes you're at these games, you're just like, man, when is this going to end? and these have not been that way this year. Yeah,
and they'll be tested. They will be scouted. There will be guys who will watch film on them, and they'll instruct their hitters to, there's now I saw a guy the other night. Did you see the other night? I don't know where the game is because I was following what's it, Big Donkey on Twitter.
Steven Schock.
Which again, he fills up my Twitter line. I don't know what the guy does.
He's got a podcast with D1 now. Apparently,
we got to get him on here.
I was wondering when somebody was going to grab him, but yeah, well, maybe we'll see if we can make that happen.
Tweet out there and just say, "Hey, man, do you want to get on our show? We can have him get on there because I'd love to have the guy because I think he's willing to kind of do anything, but." There was a guy in a game, and I forgot where it was, and there were 2 strikes on him, and the batter was late getting into the box, and the umpire called a strike on him. It was strike 3 for a delay of game. It's a delay of game penalty, and I don't know where of course, everybody was. The ump was showboat. The ump was all about him and making a big deal about it. But yeah, so you're going to have, getting back to the point, you're going to have guys with Devin and Carter who are going to try to slow their pace down because they're going to say, look, this guy, the scouting report's going to be, if you're in the box, you better have 2 hands on the bat and ready to go because he's coming with it. He's going to come to the plate with it. And that can disrupt the hitter's timing and so that mind game that can happen. So there's going to be, I think that happened a little bit. Didn't that happen in Oklahoma State? I think that Corbin said after the game that they kind of got into he thought his pace got disrupted a little bit. Carter Holton, at least.
He sped up.
Yeah. So when you're trying to go fast and guys are sitting there and they call time or they step out of the box, so that'll definitely be some times, and it'll be good to see too as we go to Columbia this weekend. We played 20 games overall, and 14 of them have been at home. but to go and I was impressed with the Hawaii series, how their crowd was into it. Of course, that is their pro team in Hawaii, sort of baseball wise. I mean, that's what they turn to. But to go into these environments that Holton and these guys haven't been into, some of the young guys, as far as SEC, these crowds are going to be against them. That'll be a learning moment too. We'll see how these guys react. I think already we've seen what we think is going to happen, but you just never know.
Well, I think one thing that's big is that some of these guys, even though it didn't go so well last year, pitched on that huge stage in Omaha, and they're basically pitching road games. And I think once you've gone through that a couple of times, and it was Owen and Riley and Little, and I think just the benefit of having that experience, you would think would help.
Oh, yeah. And even Christian Little, he was 17 at the time and was pitching in Omaha, and got that experience. Didn't do that great comparatively. I don't think there was anything. I think Mississippi State and 19,000 other people that were there pulling for them, or however many there were, maybe 20,000. It felt like 100,000. So he got that experience, and maybe not pitching like you said that they did that well, but they've got that behind them, and they've seen that and experienced it, and been in that environment.
Sneaky little storyline here. Brett Hansen started to become a little bit more a part of things.
Yeah, and you wonder. I mean, he got himself 2 innings. He's just an unknown still. I don't know how often they're going to throw him out there, but there are guys like that. There's Jack Anderson's started. There was something I think you asked him in the post game about. Did you see something in Jack he didn't like? Because he was getting the ball. He was getting throughout. He'd been in 6 games up to the Missouri game. He'd been in 5 and only 4 2/3, but he was getting the ball in some key situations, and he's an experienced guy. He's played at Princeton for several years and one of their better pitchers. So there are guys on this staff up and down that when they get their chance, they're going to be called upon, and some of them the leash is going to be a little shorter than others, but he's one that it doesn't hurt. I mean, Hansen's an older guy, right? What's his age?
Hansen came in as a freshman when he should have been a junior by age.
Right, yeah, because he did his Mormon mission. So yeah, I mean, maturity-wise, you can be 22-year-old sophomore or whatever, and you've been through some life experiences. Those things I know, those Mormon missions can be life-changing, and you go through a lot and see a lot. But it's not the same still. You got to be out on the mound in front of 11,000 people who were encouraging you to do poorly. So, but there is something to be said about being an older soul kind of guy and have that experience. We'll just have to watch and see how that works and see if they can work him in, meaning Hansen, if they work him in a little bit more.
Well, back to the Anderson question that I asked Tim, he said the reason they pulled him mid-count was they wanted a ground ball. Well, I'm looking at it now. Guess who's got the highest ground ball percentage on the team?
Schultz.
I mean, basically, what would it be? 73% of the hitters he's faced have either struck out or grounded out.
Right.
So that's pretty strong. Actually, of any innings, the highest ground ball percentage is Hansen. So, keep that in mind, especially if they need a ground ball lefty. Although Berkwich is pretty ground ball heavy too. I mean, look, Chip, they've got options everywhere you look. And here we are with Christian Little in the background too. And if that pops, then God help you facing these guys.
If Christian Little, and I texted you this the other day at the game, if Christian Little can figure out the stretch position compared to the windup, he's such a different pitcher to me in the windup than he is in the stretch. I wish there was a way to figure that out over the course of his 2 years, 1.5 years, 1.25 years that he's been pitching at Vanderbilt, what the stats are. But he gets run on a lot in the stretch. It's not something like I'm telling everyone out here that they don't know, that Brownie doesn't know. but he gets run on a lot. His kick is high. But in the windup, he's a beast. I mean, it's almost like his demeanor out there from the windup is totally different than it is from the stretch, and his velocity as well. And if they can figure that out, he's going to be dangerous. He's dangerous now. You can tell they're giving him some breadcrumbs. Get an inning, get 2 innings, get some confidence. Let's stretch this thing out, because I still think they believe in him, and they haven't lost confidence in him. It's just a matter of the guys. I did not know that he's still the youngest player on the team. Did you know that?
Still.
Yeah, he as a sophomore.
That's crazy.
So I don't think he turns 19 until June or July. So that's something to be. That's just something to remember. Keep remembering. I don't care how talented you are. You still have only been here on Earth so many days to mature and go through life experiences. So again, finishing up on him, if he can figure that out. Then I think, because he's almost, if he did figure it out, maybe he could be a closer. As hard as he throws, inning or two, but I just don't know if from the stretch position they're willing to do that right now.
Their pitching staff next year, presuming no injuries or whatever, Holton, Patrick Riley, Hunter Owen, Futrell, Little, Grayson Moore, Bryce Cunningham, Perkwich Hansen. Then you got the other guys, Grayson Carter, Ginther, Bradley, Evans. One of those guys will step up. And that's just in addition to whoever shows up from the freshman class.
Right. It's just an excess of riches. You just got to keep going. So
yeah, I mean, I like the way this is going, because all of a sudden you've got a lineup that you look at and you're like, experience, just all over the field. And in this pitching, and I just think they're going to be really tough to beat.
Yeah, and one thing that I was going to ask you your comment about, I know that Parker Nolan was a guy who was, I'm not saying the third base position was his to lose, because Davis Diaz took it over pretty quick, but that kid, when he hits the ball on the screws, I know he's only batting .222, but I think the talent is there, and I'm just changing the subject a little bit, but as far as guys who is there a Vaz on this team? Is there you got Leneve lurking back there, he's hitting 188, but is there a guy on the non-starters who could bust out? I don't know what you think of that, but there's, looking up and down there, there's still some talented kids who are waiting to get at bats, and what do you think that there's a guy out there in that mold of that to come in?
I suspect this is their 9, and
right.
This let me just go every position on the field. They're not moving Carter Young off short, nor should they, or out of the lineup. Davis Diaz is playing major league caliber defense at third right now. Colwick is going to be in there. I think there's some, I'm not going to say defensive lapses. There's just a lot of times that there's a ball you think he's going to get to that he doesn't. And maybe it's just a fluke, but they love Tate. Tate's really got a lot of pop. You're not taking him out. Keegan's going to be in there somewhere. Keegan's having an elite offensive season. And really, I think, gotten better in terms of about not chasing, but again, we're about to see it get tougher. Bolger, he's stuck with this long, and you want to stick it out a little bit more after what you saw yesterday. Jones didn't go anywhere, and Wright, he's maybe the most talented player on that offense. I don't know that it's all going to end that way this year, but he probably is. Bradfield's going nowhere, and I don't think Vaz is going anywhere, and nor should he. I love his approach. Vaz is that guy that, like, I'm always thinking, okay, you got bases loaded or, in 1 out or whatever. He's that guy that always went up there just because he's so good with making contact and taking walks and not chasing a bad pitch. I mean, yeah, I think you'd love to see Nolan get another shot somewhere. And the thing that I like about Parker is he can go to different parts of the field, and I think that's going to serve him sometimes. But I just don't see a spot right now for him. And probably that changes with injury at some point. Somebody gets hurt. And I guess I would think he's going to get the first crack at going back in. I guess the wild card would be Cassis, but Cassis to me just looks like a big time talented hitter. Oh, there's Vastine too. That's another guy we've kind of forgotten. My sense is Cassis. I'm not going to say has won that job, but he might be tough to dislodge right now.
Well, you look at who's played of the starters who are against in Belmont. Cassis has played in 13 games, and Nolan has played in 15 of the 19. And then there's a drop off after that. So those two guys seem like they're the ones who are getting the second chance, the next tier, and they're getting their shot. Leneve has played in 9 games, Vastine's played in 9 games, and then and then McKenzie. But after that, there's kind of a drop off. So I don't think that we're not going to fool anybody to think that Vanderbilt's going to go throughout the year without having an injury. I mean, look what it happens every year. Somebody's going to get banged up. We hope not, but you saw what happened with Carter Young last year, and he had players step up. But this team looks like, I think that going back to Colwick's really changed his body. I mean, that kid has gotten stronger. A lot of work in the weight room, I'm sure. He just looks different. Several of the players look like that. Just look like they bulked up and gotten stronger. So if an injury does happen, there are definitely 4 or 5 guys in there that could step up and pick up the slack. But I agree with your comment. I think that they're pretty much settled on the 9, but there's some questions as far as first base long term. And the DH, I said that 2 weeks ago. First base, and if Bulger's going to be able to hit when he doesn't catch, if they're going to or try something else.
Any other baseball-related thoughts?
Baseball-related thoughts. Yeah, I've got one. I'll toss this out here because I've heard it talked about. I am a person of free market, believes in free market enterprise. I know there's some people who do not for whatever reason, but have you seen the ticket prices at the Hawk for some of these games that are on StubHub?
No, fortunately, I'm not ever looking there because I'm never buying. Now, my family is on occasion, although that hasn't been the case this year. Well, so no, I have not. But I'm guessing the Tennessee series is crazy.
Well, yeah, and it's supply and demand, which I got a D- at Vanderbilt when I took that my sophomore year. I don't know why I took it, but I do remember supply and demand, and when you only have 2,800 tickets or whatever we got, what's the capacity? Is it 2,800 or so, 3,000?
It's 3,700.
Oh, really?
Yes, okay. Yeah. It's been that for years.
Okay, they expanded the outfield. For some reason, I had 2,800. So you got 30. So and you're playing well. You won a couple World Series titles, and you've won. 17, 18 games in a row, and things are going well. And then you've got a team like Tennessee who is rolling in here. And the only way those guys can get into the ballpark is when they buy StubHub tickets or whatever. They're not going to be selling those things. The season tickets in the bowl are sold out. I don't think you can get them in the outfield. But there are tickets on there for $500 a piece.
Oh my goodness!
That sold behind home plate. For Friday and Saturday's games. So we're talking, and I'm sure if I had to guess, I think they'd be Tennessee fans who were buying them because, they're all the success they had. But, I mean, there's tickets for Wagner and that were going for the Army. I mean, $75 a piece for those games. I mean, you got to check it out. I know you've got your. But
what's frustrating to watch. Go ahead. Let me let you finish.
No, but it shows you, when there's very few limited tickets available for a team that's successful. And I've read in the media that concert tickets are going for record numbers. These tours are finally out because of COVID, and you've got people buying tickets, and the secondary market is exploding because people want to get out of the house. But I just never thought that Vanderbilt baseball game against an SEC team would be getting $500 a ticket ever. I mean, it used to be when I played, and I'm dating myself, we had a schedule card with, you punch a little foldable deal, and you punch the number of the guy at the gate. And it was like $75 for the season ticket. I know it's changed a lot, but I'm just saying, I don't know if any, I don't know what Ole Miss, I know they go for it pretty expensive down there, but that just is amazing, and it shows you how SEC baseball has exploded, continues to grow, that the prices would be that much. It's just, it's pretty amazing that it'll happen. And I don't know if it'll ever, people want to go see good baseball, and they want to see national teams come in here like they are. And you got a family of four, somebody spending $2,000 for 4 tickets for one game. That's just, that's amazing to me. And again, some people are against it. I think I read a tweet somewhere a couple weeks ago where they were appealing to the Vanderbilt ticket office or to the athletic director, Candace Story. You got to do something about this. I don't know what you can do. I don't know. There's nobody out there who's. It's. If you got season tickets, I know they're trying to say the common fan doesn't get to see the game, but until they add more seats to that stadium and balance things out, I don't know what the answer is. But
the problem as I see it is you have a lot of people with more money than they know what to do with that buy up those rows behind home plate, those sections. It's half full at best. They don't make any noise. And if you're one of those people that's got those seats, you're not showing up, sell them or give them away to somebody. There are people that want the park that can't get in. I don't like seeing that. Every time you turn on the TV and you see the first few rows, it's Maggie Corbin and a guy with a radar gun. I just think it's a bad look for the program.
Yeah, and there have been some things that I know I was involved in, and when Tim came on, like year 6 or 7, the champion circle before that was started, we talked about some different things, and I think they instituted what LSU does, where LSU will let people come in like the second or third inning. They'll sell them general admission tickets, and they'll eyeball the tickets and say, all right, looks like we got 100 tickets open, and they'll sell those, and so they're double selling the seat. And you have to move. If the original ticket owner comes in the third inning, you got to leave. But at least they're getting people in the stand. So I do get your point, and I agree. There's some people over there who have season tickets who maybe go to 5 games a year. I got a buddy of mine in Memphis who played with me, and he bought season tickets, and he really buys them so he can get regional tickets. So he'll send them to people, he'll sell them, transfer them, whatever, but not all the time. So it's a thing that you want the true fans to get there and to be there. I'm not saying, when I say supply and demand, deal with it, I'm not really saying deal with it, but I'm just saying it's what's remarkable to me that, and we'll see how we'll follow it when the big teams roll in here. I think it'll be pretty packed out, and you'll see that. I
do too. They need to put a deck over the infield, just for a number of reasons. But that would, then you could. I'm worried. As a father of 2, and we like to go to games and stuff. It's just tickets for anything are getting so expensive.
Right. Braves. Braves tickets.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know.
Third base line in the second deck, and I think the tickets were. It was last year, 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago. They were $220 a piece. And that's a lot of money. The food is jacked up, and you
don't grow the game that way.
Right.
I grew up, my best memory as a kid going to the ballpark with my dad. Price, no, it was different, but we didn't have pro sports, but price wasn't an obstacle, and I got to love baseball that way. I'm just not sure, and this is at all levels, that's going to happen in the way it did for you and I.
Yeah, well, I think there's some games, some series that's coming up. That UT series, and I don't want to look ahead, but that's going to be one that will be gain the national spotlight, and really, hopefully, the weather will be good. Sometimes it can be iffy in April, and really see how that thing can get packed out, because I know Tim will be. That's a game that UT is going to be pointing to, depending on how they do this weekend, and if they're coming in here on a roll, I think that will get some national exposure. But there's several of those coming up. In the schedule.
I'm saving my thoughts for next week because I want to ration them on that. But that's
Sure.
going to be wild. Thoughts on the logo?
I really like the Star V, and I really haven't seen any. You're going to see, if you see whether it's your board, which I categorize your board as being diehard Vanderbilt fans and long term. There's maybe some people who are just joining the fray, but you got a lot of guys who've suffered through a lot. And you've seen it, and so you're not. I don't think I've seen anything on there on your board. I was trolling around there today, and I didn't see anybody who liked it. I haven't seen one person who's liked it.
No.
And I don't know if that's just the sample size of, like I said, of people who are on your board or people on Twitter or whatever. When it seems a little Missouri-ish, the font. And of
yes, I thought about that too.
Which I hate.
Oh, Missouri's is awful.
And my son even said, "Hey, Dad, why does Missouri have that? Why do their numbers look like that? It's almost like a Tron, that computer game that you remember." I'm dating myself there. Remember that? That futuristic font. So I don't know. I'm more of a whatever it is. I'd really like some consistency and stick with it and quit changing. Quit changing fonts and logos and jerseys and shades But they've gone all in on it. You go on the website and the logo. They even had the logo up, and you notice my son's very observant, both of them, 12 years old and 9 years old. He looks at the game last night against Dayton, and he said, "Dad, they have the new logo on the scoreboard at Dayton."
Oh, boy.
He saw it on television. They had it, I guess the NIT information. So they already had it out there. So this is something that's been in the can for a long time, and they've just popped it out.
It needed to stay in the can.
Right. So I just want some consistency, and if you win, people like the logo. If it's whatever. I saw Brandon Barca commented on today on Twitter. I happened to see that the former media, was he media? What was he in the?
Athletics Barca. Man, I love that guy.
The
Great dude.
The hot dog man, dressed up in the hot dog suit. I loved him when he did that. He was like, and that was not his personality.
No, not at all. Not at all.
He was not like that. That was the greatest thing about that, because I spent some time with him at the regional several years ago in Charlottesville when we went up there, and we were at a restaurant. We hung out with him a little bit, and just a quiet guy. Just very quiet. Not
okay. Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
They had money to pay somebody for a new logo they didn't need to design this for 2 years. They lost Barca because they couldn't just pay him a decent wage.
Yeah, I know.
This is. I've tried to keep my mouth shut lately just because it's just always low-hanging fruit, and I think it just wears everybody out, including me. But, the day they released the logo, I would say, you tell me if I'm wrong, Chip. There are two things that Vanderbilt fans agree on. One, the baseball program's headed in a pretty good direction and has been pretty good for a while. And two, the Star V was great. Mm-hmm. And you got... On the day Tennessee pays $8 million to sign a 5-star quarterback, Vandy's out changing the logo.
Yeah,
I'm like, what's going on?
Yeah, I agree. I'm just and someone sent me a text, and there's some site out there, and you can go to all the different logos throughout the years. It's almost like you've seen the one where it's like helmet. It shows all the different helmets from the last 100 years. And it shows a picture of it, and it just, we've had so many and logos, and we call it Luke Wyatt, who was the equipment manager. I know you know Luke well. I saw Luke at the basketball game, and I asked him. I said, Luke, I ran into a guy where they got their jersey and the guy I played with, and apparently I missed the sale. They had a sale where they sold a bunch of jerseys and stuff. And I said, man, I wish I would have known that. I said because I would have gotten my Flying V jersey. We called it
the mid '80s,
CM Newton era, the Flying V. It was Vandy, and it had the flying star with the little marks coming off of it, like it was shooting through the universe, which was one of the worst logos. And then the Vanderbilt V with the person with the sword.
The DiNardo helmets were awful.
So there's so much you could say.
The Star V is such a good look, man. I mean, look, I know they're listening. Let me just tell you, if you guys want to make a slam dunk good decision, and I don't care how much you have to tuck your tail, just can it. Go back to the Star V. If you want a small win, take the what people are calling the chubby V and put it on the star, but don't make it oversized. Make it a little. I don't know. Just take what you had that worked, and take your loss and go home. I don't care what money you spent. Like this is an easy one, Chip. It's not hard.
Did you see the? I mean, on the press release. I mean, it's not like they just came up with this, Chris. They had the colors. You know how UT has a specific orange where it's not. There's a UT orange, and there's a number for it, and it's got this much orange and a dot of white.
Pantone and X colors, and I will give them. I will say this. That's a good step. Pick your colors, stick with them. That was the one good part of this. But the logo, I just think when everybody has the same reaction, no, you're not smarter than everybody else. You're just wrong.
Well, as I told you before, we can end it on this because we'll be here till nightfall. But I mean, are we not going to be able to wear? If you're really going to brand it, does that mean the old school? Because I think the Vanderbilt uniforms they wore last night, the old school is their best look. And I heard they had a black version of that, a black jersey. I saw a picture of it.
Oh, I think those are cool-looking uniforms, the old Perry Wallace look.
Yeah, the Perry Wallace.
I like them. So they've done some good things here. Like, I thought that their football uniforms under James Franklin were the best ones I've seen. That's not that far in the rearview mirror. I didn't mind a lot of the uniforms I had for football last year. Now, I hated taking the Star V away, but like they're making some progress with these things. But see, now here's the thing, Chip. If you go with that, now you got to go and you got to sand that off Memorial Gym's floor. Mm-hmm. You got to replace all the uniform. I'm like, you're just going to throw bad money after bad money, and you could use it for. Heck, you take the money and put a second deck over the infield. I mean, do something with it, but don't do this.
But I mean, yeah, and then are the throwback uniforms out for baseball? Are the friends of mine jokingly from other schools call them the prison uniforms that they wear on Friday night in baseball, the black pinstripes. Are those gone? Because that's
now I'm not as crazy about the uniforms as some of the people are, but it's become kind of an iconic thing, and I get it. Now, the one thing that I've always hated about the baseball uniforms is I did not understand why the Star V is not on the hat. I've always hated the block V. I hated the old one. I don't like the one they have now. That's one thing that I think they've missed something. It's, again, for a school where you cannot use the word iconic very often, it's iconic. It's great design. It is simple. The color scheme's great. I think everybody was floored, and I am too.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. If there's enough backlash, or if there's right now they seem like they're settled on it, all in. But again, I haven't seen many people say what a great looking. What a great looking change.
Nobody has said that. Nobody has said that.
That's right. Well, let me tell you about the real estate business. And it's crazy, Chris. At Frederick and Clark Realty, my company that I own with my brother, we've been around since 1961. As far as a company, we got 2 offices. But the real estate market, it remains hot. There's not a lot of inventory out there. There's a great article in the National Business Journal that I saw this week. And if you get a chance, if you subscribe to that, if you're a listener, it talks about buying a home in 2011 versus buying a home in 2022. what that was like, the differences between buying now and buying then, and it's just a whole different ball game. And they lay out the steps that you had to do in 2011 versus all the things you had to do, 6 or 7 steps, and being not just a pre-qualify letter. You got to have a pre-approval letter, and the hoops that you have to jump through in order to be considered when you make a purchase offer on a house. What does that have to do with our company? We have over 180 agents who know how to get that done for you, who know how to play the game, who have the contacts in this area. You can't be an amateur and go out there by yourself and do it if you're on the buy side and the sell side as well. So our agents are professional. They do it for a living. They're not part-timers. We have the experience. And with inventories being as low as it is now, you need that person, that professional advocate to work for you and to get through the red tape. And that's where Fridrich and Clark comes into play, and I promote our company and my brother and I's company. So look us on the web at fridrichandclark.com. We've talked to some of the listeners of this podcast and have helped them. Two have actually contacted me and used our agents or said that they used one of our agents. So we appreciate that. But we're Vanderbilt folks. So if you're listening to this, you have an affinity for the Commodores, or so do we. And we've been around. My father played basketball there. I played baseball. So we're Vanderbilt people. So we'd love to help you out. It's a scary market out there. You're going to make a lot of money if you sell, but where are you going to go? And that's the problem. If you want to stay in this area, we can help you with all those answers and be glad to. So 615-327-4800. You can ask for me, and love to help you through that process and hold your hand and get the job done for you.
Should be a fun week of baseball ahead. Should be a really fun week next week, as we'll talk about Tennessee and a game with my alma mater, Lipscomb, in between. Which, by the way, I love those games.
Yeah, they're fun.
At First Horizon. That's the first time we'd gotten to go since 2019 because of weather and COVID, and man, that was just. I just love being in that park. So
yeah, glad that they got to play over there. I wish people would have seen it, but I understand the situation. It's just staffing and
yeah,
you know. But we'll next week, hopefully, the weather will work out for that game too.
There were a lot of people there. There's a restaurant near the third base foul pole, and that porch was packed. That was heads up thinking by. I don't know if it was just people there eating anyway or Vanderbilt fans, but that was a really cool view of the game yesterday.
Yeah. So glad
all right,
job.
Chip,
all right,
we'll see you next week.
Okay, man. Take care.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. We thank our presenting sponsor, Jody Jones DDS. We thank our other sponsors, Sutherland and Belk and MyPerfectFranchise.net. If you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, and that's how we make this work, please email me at chrisley70@gmail.com. We also ask that you subscribe to our website, VandySports.com. That is $99 a year. You get things there that you don't get here. And of course, please rate, review, and subscribe where you see our podcast. That helps us get noticed. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at VandySports.com. Follow me at chrisley70. And finally, subscribe to our Vandy Sports YouTube channel as well. Thank you for listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast, which is part of the 440 Network. I'm your host, Chris Lee. We'll catch you with another episode coming very soon.